It is very difficult to establish a rule quickly and the right one. As I can see now in Poland, the process developed more than a quarter of century. There are so many steps or stages that are focused on the final proposal, still proposal for environmental impact assessment for every technical solution for the development we propose, transport development there. Because when you change the project in a big scale, it is required to provide another environmental impact assessment. And because of this, the process for the infrastructure development of this general scale is rather long.
I'm a business economist specialized in logistics, now working 40 years in the field, and having heard our Polish colleague, I must confess that what I have seen at implementation on ecological transport planning is always happening if you get the actual implementation transport planner, the technical people who do it, to understand what you want and tell them, we need to protect this. Do you have a technical solution to implement it? Let's think about it. And if you get the technical people to think about it, then you're on the way. So I appreciate this collaborative approach you have here to talk to each other and not to have the contradicting pressure group position, which I experienced so many times in the past.
Well, I also don't have a scientific proof, but our experience tells us the same, that the most important is to bring technicians and ecologists to one table and make them understand each other. We are trying to do that in the development of our guidelines, where we have consortia with all kind of people, planners, ecologists, road administrations, all somehow involved in that to bring all the interests together and find compromises. I think it's a topic where there are so many different interests that cooperation is needed and compromise is needed on all sides. I think the earlier you involve all stakeholders, all interests, whatever, the better the solutions will be. In my opinion, the best would be to have a strategical plan in the beginning, taking into account the different demands from transportation, but also from ecology. We also experienced that even in the operation phase, there are so different interests and different uses of the structures. And it's not only about spatial planning, we heard about that, of course, that's a big issue. Also in Austria, I'm looking to my colleague from the ASFINAG, we have a lot of issues on that. But it's also about hunters, for example. The ASFINAG constructs green bridges and the hunters put their hunting stands right at the end to make an easy job, but still it's not what it was planned to. But we don't have legal possibilities to do anything against it. So it's only about talking, about finding people, understanding each other. You can talk to administrations as long as you want. If they're not willing to do anything, you can't force them. So I think it's a lot about talking and convincing where possible, but if somebody just doesn't want to listen, you won't be able to convince.
I see it like you. It's every project, it's very important to get every stakeholder on one table to check out what every person wants to have at the project. We have a lot of problems with the hunters, with local communities, with national-wide communities, and it's very, very important to see the different solutions of every stakeholder. We have Victoria Rice-Enns told it. We built 20 bridges for animal crossing on our traffic net, and on the existing traffic net we have to build it until 2027. I think it's and so we have to build one bridge a year, or we had to. Now we have to build 2 bridges a year because we have no chance to finish the bridges because too many stakeholders have anything against them or wants on another point, or there's so a lot of parameter that we are not able to finish them. And so it's very important that you on every project get very early on one table to fix it very early to make them finish.
But of course it's always difficult, and it depends on how to say, on the atmosphere and the political. I mean, if you have to find the right moment to get it approved. Let's put it that way.
So I think we have a special situation in Austria because also different ministries are working together. So I'm representing the Austrian Environmental Agency, and so we are the small daughter of the Ministry of Agriculture, Forest, Water Management and Environment. So we like always these long names. And we have a really good communication between these ministries, and I think that's also important to have this political understanding across the different ministries to get all stakeholders on the boat. So and there I think we have a really special situation in Austria. So it was a long process, and we can tell a story about. There were some people who were really active the last 20 years, and then we had the Victoria who drive it in the political groups. And
in Hungary, I think theoretically everything is okay in general, but in the real life it's not, because so the law behind the life of a project is okay. It's based on the European Union laws and it's logical and so on. But in practice, there are some real challenges. That's why I will talk now about another plan that is also in the North Hungarian mountains, but very sensitive, and it's also a Ramsar area. And we talked with the national park, and they said that we should go as far as we can in the eastern part of this area, and we said that okay, because also the traffic said that the way that goes more eastern from that area, it's so there are more traffic. So also from other reason we say that it's okay, we will bypass this area. But the problem was that at the border crossing, the Slovakian partners, they said that they have no connection to this road. So what could we do? We have the task that we have to do some project in this area, because that is the TEN-T corridor, and then it's not so easy to make everything good, although the laws are logical behind it.
Well, building infrastructure in Slovenia means we have to face with two challenges. The first one, nature is extremely wild and changes are huge because we are in a contact between Mediterranean area and Alpine area in terms of climate. It's extremely difficult in terms of construction, and of course it's difficult in terms of how to protect different species and so on. But of course, especially after the war in Balkan, bears from the areas where war taking place, they're coming to Slovenia. And then you can imagine what kind of problem we are facing with. But it's then really too long if I will jump into this. But as gentlemen said before, there are conflicts, of course, but there are technical solutions as well. So I think that we are quite good in that. What is important, well, I'm not involved in this process in particular, but what is important, it's not only the conflict between the nature and between the road construction, but there are other interests which are behind this, and they might be sold as the environmental argument sometimes, might be sold. It's still open, it's still hot, and I doubt that the roads will be constructed in a very short time. But really, it's extremely challenging thing. May I just add two more words for the Danube region, because this is one of the arguments why we are here. And I believe that the lessons already learned in Alps, the lessons they are taking place now here in Carpathian, listen to you, which means you are in the middle of something. This will come to the Daneric part of the Danube region. And therefore I hope that from this project a lot of knowledge will be bring into discussions into the whole Danube region, how to bring the knowledge developed here to the areas where they will face with exactly the same problems as they're taking here. So
and I think you have the same problem here in this project, but the question is how can we bring different interests together at first, and the second one is if you do this project, the result has to be result-oriented. So it has to be realistic. For example, in the Alpen-Carpathian project, they wanted us to save an 800-meter corridor. But it's not enough to say, okay, please save them. You have to tell us how. Because there are different others interests on the nature, there are infrastructure developments and so on, and it's not that easy as it seems, I think. We have, for example, in Lower Austria regional plans, we have local plans, there are municipalities who can do their local plans, so you have to bring another interests together. At the end it's a political decision to do another step.
I think from the scientific community it's important to have good quantitative parameters, especially if you work for technicians. If you come from the ecological viewpoint, you have maybe nice wordings, but you don't have the concrete figures. And if you show them diagrams and you have some numbers and figures, then it's much easier to show them what you want, what you need. And what I experienced from the Croatian side, the Croatian, when they had a very big, huge program of highway planning and also building. And for them, it was quite important that when the highways are built, that you have already the ideas how to implement the wildlife measurements in which way ever. But you have no chance afterwards. If the highways are there, there's no interest more.